Well, good afternoon, guys. This afternoon, we got a little project that we got going on. A friend of mine had a Harley Davidson. I believe it's a 2002. It's a 1450 cc engine. So it's been parked for like 2.5 years, give or take. So we decided to go ahead and take that carburetor off and go ahead and clean it out before we try and crank it over. Well, let me go ahead and show you guys. Well, as you can see, we're at my sister's place. They do boat repair and small engine repair, stuff like that. So, but this is the bike in question. It's a 2002. I believe it's called, I believe this is a wide glide or something like that. I'm not too sure about the name of it, but it is a 2002 and it is a 1450 cc. Yesterday I kind of started on it, guys. I didn't record me removing the carburetor, but basically what I've done is remove the carburetor, got the little choke valve off of it, throttle cables and all that, and the fuel line. So carburetor is completely off, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one and just tear it apart, clean it out, and I'm going to go ahead and replace all the little seals, gaskets, needles, and that little float little needle right there. So let me go ahead and continue on this one, guys, and well, we'll see where we get. Hopefully it'll start up. Well, guys, we got the carburetor on the table, so let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and go through this quick. I'm going to put on time lapse, the disassembly, and then I'll record true time whenever I want to show you guys something that might be important. So let me go ahead and get started, guys. I'm going to disassemble on time lapse. Well, guys, here we remove the float, the little needle, we remove the juts, everything's over here. That little gasket for the bowl did snap, so got to replace it. Got bowl off, there's residue on it. We're going to remove the screws to this back cover. I'm going to remove this little adjustment needle. So basically right now we're just tearing this little carburetor apart so we can go ahead and clean everything out, and then the assembly is going to be a little bit slower because we got to make sure that everything seats properly, seals don't get pinched or frayed or nothing. So let me go ahead and continue with this assembly. Well, guys, there's a carburetor. It's all dismantled, all torn apart. This piece here is the one that's tricky. You have to undo this little, you have to undo this part here. You have to completely take it off its connecting point so that you can go ahead and slide it out before you can actually pull this section of the carburetor off. So let me go ahead and get to cleaning all this junk so we can go ahead and start putting it back together and see how it goes. Alright, there's a fuel bowl, float, all the little screws, needles, fuel inlet, everything's there. We're going to go ahead and get all that cleaned out and start putting it back together. So let me go ahead and get started, guys. Well, guys, pretty much we got everything cleaned out, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and start assembling this thing. The tricky part is this here. There's a tiny little hole right there on the tip. Hold on, right there. And then that thing, you got to make sure that it's clean all the way down to here. So this is a tricky one to get. This one here, you see all those little side vent holes? Those have to be clean. And then there's a little tiny little hole right there that goes all the way through. I hope you guys can see that light shining all the way across. And then of course this is the one that sits at the very bottom of the bowl, so this is the one that gets really caked, and you can see that I cleaned that little port out. So those are the main things that get clogged after a carburetor sits for too long. These are the ones that I wanted to make sure that I got clean before I started to assemble everything else. Pretty much everything else is clean. Let me go ahead and start putting this together. Oh, you see that little pile of, I don't know what to call it. It's just grit, grime, dirt, whatever. That was sitting inside the fuel bowl, inside that little cap in the bottom. That's where your this actually sits in. So all that crap was in this little tube itself. This little I don't know what it's called. It's needle set screw, whatever. I don't know, but it was all in there. So now that I got all this clean, made sure I used air to make sure that all the passages were clear. Let me go ahead and start putting this back together, guys, and slap it on the bike, and we'll see if it starts. This is the tricky part, guys, getting this back in. This is the part that is, you have to make sure that this little metal flange doesn't fly out of place. Bring this down, and you got to slide this into place. And then you got to get these set up with this pin, and then this little keeper right here. So let me go ahead and get this done, guys. But I couldn't do this one-handed. I had to get that square in there. I'm still having trouble one-handed, but you see that little pin right there, that little C-clip holds it in place, and then this little bolt ties it into that little rod. Goes to the throttle cable. So whenever that's the action that it actually does right there. Okay, so we got that part done. Let's go ahead and get this underside. So guys, there's a needle set, there's a float with a valve. We're almost there, guys. The hard part was installing that little gate right there. That was the hardest part. The little O-ring came undone, and I put it on the first time. The O-ring was kind of binding, so it wouldn't close. Which, well, I mean, that's not the way it goes. So I had to take it apart again, get that O-ring, stop it, keep it from binding, and then went ahead and got it back in there. So I'm working properly now. So let me go ahead and get this fuel bowl on the bottom and finish putting this thing together so I can slap it back on the bike and crank it over, see what it does. Well, guys, carburetor is all put together. Seems to be working fine. I am going to install this on the bike, and I'm going to drain the gas tank first. I just want to make sure that old gas is not going to. Got to make sure that I got fresh gas in there before I crank it over, start it. Those are the little. They're kind of like torch tip cleaners. That's what I use to clean out those little needle set and whatever. So let me go ahead and get it back on there. Let's see what it does. Well, guys, let's go ahead and get this car back in place. All right, give me 1 second. Upper cable. That one, and then there's this one. Aquí, la vacuum little pump. This little hose here is a vacuum. Whenever the engine creates a vacuum, it'll open up that little petcock valve on the tank, which will allow fuel to come through. Whenever you shut down the engine will slowly lose vacuum pressure, and that little petcock valve automatically closes so that the fuel doesn't keep running into the engine. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty nice little deal right there. Right now I'm trying to get the rubber grommet on the little Y tube back here. There it is. And now I'm going to go ahead and press fit this carburetor back in there. You got to make sure that it's aligned before you start pushing it into place. And there we go, guys. Throttle. Carburetor's in place. I got to get this fuel line back in place. Get the little clamp tight on there and start cranking this thing over and see what it's going to do. Balance them off. And tighten up this clamp. There we go. All you gotta do is get this little air cleaner back on there. It's got these two hoses. I'm not sure as to what goes through here, but I am going to had these bolts, and it's got these little washers that go on it, so I'm gonna have to put it back on there in the same way. We don't work on bikes, guys. I'm doing this as a favor, so I guess we can say we're learning on this one. There's that one, and like I said, guys, the washers. The washer goes on the outside. Slip it in behind the bracket, and the other O-ring is right behind it. And then the last one was in the back. Again, I'm not sure as to what these are for. I'm gonna have to do a little research and find out what it's for, but there's a reason why it's there, so we're gonna go ahead and keep it there. Born to ride little emblem goes back on there. Live to ride, ride to live. And this is cracked, so I'm not going to tighten it too much, guys. And well, let's go ahead and get to cranking this one over and see what it does. All right, guys, let me get that battery in place and go ahead and give it a try. See what happens. Several issues we still got to address with this bike. I don't have the parts for them. That little regulator turned out to be bad, so we are going to have to replace it. I still have to go back and see if I could find it at a Harley dealership over here in McAllen, an hour away, give or take. Another thing we got to get is a battery for that thing, and we do have that battery cover. I just got to go pick it up and install it so that this bike can be ready. Still not sure as to what the owner's going to want to do with it. I don't know if he was doing it planning to resell it or keep it or what, but I mean, bike sounds really, really nice. It's got 10,800 something miles on it, so I mean, hasn't been driven that much, but all in all, I mean, it's a decent looking little bike. Like I said, it was a 1450. It's a 2002, and at dealership they told me it was a wide, I can't remember, guys, but it's a Softail. It's part of the Softail family, I'm thinking. So all in all, guys, carburetor was cleaned, installed, and bike worked. So did some minor little adjustments. I'm gonna have to come back and finish off the, fine tune it, whatever. But all in all, it worked. So guys, I'll get back with you guys on this one. Once I get that voltage regulator and put that battery in there, I'll go ahead and show you guys the end result. We still got to clean the sucker up and take it for a little drive. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.